Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, we're doing a complete rundown of all of my electric guitars that I have in my collection as of April 2024. I haven't done one of these videos for a long time, and after lots of requests, I figured it was time to do an updated version with everything that I currently have in my walk-in wardrobe over here. Before we get into it, a huge thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. They sent me out this great sounding Shure SM7B microphone and bundle, which you'll be listening to throughout the entire video, here at the desk on my voice, and also in front of my Marshall DSL-40 CR back here. This is a great sounding microphone for voice or instrument recordings, and we'll cover that in more detail a little later on. Thanks again to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video, and you can check this microphone pack out by using the links in the description box below. Alright, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with my 52 reissue Telecaster. I purchased this in San Francisco many years ago, and it's by far my most played guitar. It's also arguably my most heavily modded guitar, and we'll talk about that as we get going. But the neck on this is one of the reasons why it sold me as a lefty at the time, back in like many years ago, probably 14 or 15 years ago or so. I didn't have many options when it came to fatter necks, and this was the first guitar that seemed to have a much thicker neck than your standard American series ones at the time. So being that I got quite large hands, I fell in love with this guitar almost instantly when I started playing it. The guy in the shop also plugged me into a 57 Custom Deluxe amplifier, which, if you know the channel, I recently reviewed one and it sounds amazing. So yeah, it was just a beautiful pairing, and that amp will basically sell you any guitars. So don't make the same mistake I did plugging into it, because yeah, you'll end up buying basically any Fender guitar that you play. It's a great sounding amp. As you can see though, it's been heavily modified. Now when I first played this out in San Francisco, I noticed that the pickups would squeal if I played with too much drive. So that's an incentive to either play clean or to find pickups that work for your particular style. And these Danny Gatton pickups from Joe Barden were fantastic. They really sort of hit the nail on the head when it came to tone and versatility. I'd played so many noiseless pickups over the years. I tried so many other pickups in other guitars, and these are by far my favorite noiseless pickups, like true noiseless, low output rail style pickups that still give you all the twang. Now these were designed originally for Danny Gatton, so if you know his playing, he's a clean country player, but you can just throw on the distortion or overdrive or fuzz and never have a problem with squeal. So they've been great. I ended up changing out all the pots on this guitar to Emerson Pro pots. I bought a whole bunch of those many years ago because they just work. As you can see here, the little switch plate is angled. This is from Rock Rabbit. They sent this out many years ago, and yeah, it's been on there ever since. It just means I can get behind the black cap that I've super glued on a little bit easier, because if they're straight, I really have a hard time getting in between here. So it just makes it a little bit easier, especially if you're working the guitar from a standing position. So that's awesome. Now the other mod I made to this guitar, which has given it an basically infinite life cycle now, is the stainless steel frets. Now these are 6105 stainless steel. While it was an expensive upgrade, I've got taller frets that give me better purchase on the guitar, and they'll never wear out. I don't have to do anything to them. They're just going to stand the test of time. So if you've got a guitar that you love and the frets are getting too small to fix, put a set of stainless steel 6105s in, and you'll be good to go for a very long time. I also had a major issue with the jack socket just coming loose all the time, so I replaced it with one of these screw-in ones, and this mod is definitely worth it if you own a 50 style tele. While this guitar looks like it's been relicked, it's been played to death. I played this more than any of my other guitars, so all the wear and tear and scuffs and black marks and all that kind of stuff everywhere is all through use. So this isn't a cosmetic thing that I paid for. I actually just used it to the point where it looks the way that it does. And if you know the channel, you know I've had this guitar for a very long time, and it'll be the guitar that I never get rid of. Over to my Tokai Love Rock electric guitar. This is the model LS110. This is a 2016 model, as you can see from the card here. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but you might be able to see that if I hold it up right about there. Now, I bought this in 2016, and it's by far my best Les Paul style electric guitar. I don't own a Gibson Les Paul anymore. I used to have a 56 reissue VOS with P90 pickups. It was a killer guitar, but in the hand, this felt identical, and if I picked them up in a blindfold test without actually plugging them in, they both felt the same, which meant that this was right up there with some of the best that Gibson were putting out. One of the reasons I love this guitar so much is the 50s profile neck, which felt identical to that of the Gibson VOS. So I'm a big fan of fat necks on guitars, and this one, it's not super fat. It's not the fattest neck you'll find on an electric, but it's definitely a lot fatter than what you'll find on the modern alternatives. When I first bought this guitar, I didn't love the color of it. While it looks great on camera, initially I wanted a tobacco burst Les Paul, but I've come to really appreciate the visual of this. It looks great on camera, anytime I take it out to play it at a gig or use it on the YouTube channel, it always pops, and I really love the look of this. But it did take me a couple of months to really get used to it. The block inlays, or these sort of trapezoid inlays, or whatever sort of shape they are, they also look very good. Taco guitars are one of the original lawsuit guitars, so if you're looking for an alternative to your straight up Gibson that gives you all the same playing experience and tones, then definitely give these guys a look. I know they're harder to find in certain parts of the world than others, but in Australia, these are everywhere, so that's why I got one. Before you think I'm a Gibson hater, here's my Gibson. This is a Flying V. I purchased this a few years back. It's a killer guitar for a number of different reasons, which I'll cover now. We get two of the most musical burst bucket pickups I've ever played. The top end on these pickups is fantastic, and this was set up beautifully straight out of the box. Now, it's much lighter of an instrument than something like my Taco Love Rock or any of my old Gibson Les Pauls, for example. So if you like light guitars and you don't want to have to lug around something really heavy, this is a great choice. And much like a Gibson SG, you can get high fret access all the way up the fretboard like you might struggle with other instruments. So I love that as well. It's not neck heavy or anything like that. It's really well balanced, and it's a very simple guitar. I love the fact that we get a single tone control and two volume controls, and that's it. So you get your typical three-way toggle switch, but only one tone control. And being that I don't really use the tone controls a whole lot, I'd rather set my amp up properly to begin with. I don't really need two tone controls. So this is great, just works on both the neck and the bridge pickup whenever you need it. And I hardly ever touch that, but it's really cool. Here's the back of the guitar. The mahogany looks beautiful up close. And now this neck isn't anywhere near as fat as most of my other guitars, but it's still very playable. You know, over the years, I've started to acclimatize to guitar necks that weren't just super fat. And this is one of the guitars that really felt great in my hand. I love playing this. Now, the reason you don't see it on the YouTube channel a whole lot, I only play this standing. I don't love playing it seated. So if you're thinking about getting a Flying V and you predominantly sit down and play, they just continually sort of slide off your leg. Now, there's ways around that, of course, but what I've found with this particular guitar is it's best played standing with the guitar strap. So if you're a gigging musician looking for something lighter than maybe a Les Paul or something like that, this would be an absolute no-brainer. This guitar really gets some high points for playability, tone, and just its overall gnarliness and visual. I mean, it's the only guitar I can just stand up next to an amp, and I don't need a guitar stand. Let's talk about the sponsored portion of this particular video. So if you like the sound of the microphone so far, Sweetwater has a great bundle available that will give you everything you need to get great sounding voice audio like this. Now, I'm not doing anything fancy either. I'm just recording using the pack directly into my XLR adapter on my camera for all of my voice audio, and you've heard the microphone in front of my guitar amplifier being recorded directly into my Focusrite sound card. For the guitar parts, I used the frequency boost option on the back of the microphone to enhance the mids and upper frequencies, making it kind of similar to that of a Shure SM57. Included with this particular pack is the Shure SM7B microphone, a Cloudlifter CL1, two quality 15-foot XLR cables, and a microphone stand for vocal or instrument recording. The Shure SM7B is a low-gain microphone operating around -59 dB, and if you use this microphone with a conventional sound card without something like the Cloudlifter, for example, you'll have to crank the preamp up on your interface, which introduces way more white noise and hiss, which kind of like ruins your audio. The CL1 Cloudlifter is an inline preamp that adds 25 dB of clean gain to your signal, allowing you to keep the gain on your interface or camera XLR adapter down to take full advantage of the SM7B sound quality. The setup was nice and simple. I simply hooked the microphone up to one of the XLR cables into one end of the Cloudlifter, out of the Cloudlifter into my XLR adapter on my camera, and that's it. If you're in the market for an SM7B, definitely give this pack a look. It will save you money over buying all of the parts separately. You really do need a Cloudlifter to get the most out of this microphone, so keep that in mind. I'll link it down below if you want to check it out. Sweetwater have super fast delivery. I was really shocked just how quick it came to the house, all the way to Australia, so thanks to them for sending this out, and you can check it out using the links in the description box below. This next guitar is my PRS SE Custom 24. Now, as you can see, it's a little bit different. It's not quite stock anymore. All the tuners are the same, all the frets are the same, the whammy bar, bridge, and all that is exactly stock, but the pickups have been changed out to the Missing Link Audio humbucker Peacock pair, I think they were from memory. I can't quite remember. I'll leave some annotations on screen, but basically everything else in this guitar was replaced. So the push-pull pot that gave us that really anemic sounding sort of split coil or single coil tone, that was removed, and the tone control was also replaced. And this has been one of my most used guitars since getting it. Not only for stuff here in the studio, because it's a really easy guitar to play, but out when I'm playing gigs. This guitar is definitely one of my favorites. It's lighter than my Tokai Love Rock. The tones are easily as good, except it's even more playable. So you combine all of that with the price of these at the time, and this is one of the best representations of a great value guitar you can find, at least in my opinion or experience here. This was also the electric guitar that stopped me looking for only thick neck guitars. So this is a wide thin neck, which is the exact opposite of what I would normally go for. I gotta say, the tremolo arm on this has been fantastic. It's by far one of the most reliable tremolo systems you're going to find. If you're used to playing a Strat, you come over to a PRS SE or a full-blown PRS, tremolo system's on a whole other level. This is so reliable to play at gigs or doing sessions where I'm recording or doing YouTube, whatever the case may be. This has just been an absolute staple in the collection. The only problem I'm having with it right now is the fact that this is a little bit loose. The nut keeps coming off. So a little bit of Loctite in there and we should be good to go. But overall, man, such a playable guitar. Can highly recommend these. This beautiful looking electric guitar is the Little Crow Corvino SD, and the SD is actually my initials. They were nice enough to put my initials on a guitar because I gave them lots of feedback in the early days of them making guitars. This is handmade in Australia, and it's one of the nicest sounding guitars I've got. We get a mini humbucker in the neck position and a single coil tally pickup in the bridge. Now, this particular combination I don't have on any other guitar, so I thought it would be a really great choice to go with this particular match set of pickups. So the output between the neck and the bridge pickup are the same, and you also get hum cancelling in the middle position. So if you play in a room that's got a lot of buzz inherently, or 60 cycle or 50 cycle hum, then you can go between neck pickup and both pickups at the same time and cancel that out, and you do get a single coil position here in the bridge. This is a really lively sounding guitar, and it has so much sustain thanks to the F-hole design. Now, a few people think they can see a smiley face here, and on camera looking at my overhead, I can actually see that now. But yeah, it's really cool. We get one volume control, one tone control, we get a 22 fret guitar, and we also have a very similar profile to that of my 52 reissue. So it's a nice chunky piece of Australian timber here, and it's got an oil finish on the neck here, which just feels amazing. It's right up there with some of the best necks in my collection. We get Goto locking tuners over here as well, and this thing is an absolute machine. And unfortunately I've been unable to play this for a while up until recently when I finally fixed it, because at my old house before I moved here, the closet would continually get damp and I couldn't just leave my guitars all over the house. So I always had issues with switches and so forth corroding, and I've since rewired this up, and it sounds unbelievable now, and it's a guitar I plan on playing more. This is one of the small issues when you've got a few guitars in your collection, or any more than say 3. You tend to focus more on one or the other, or you go through phases where you kind of abandon guitars for a long time. And this guitar is really something special, and I wanted to thank Little Crow again for sending this out. This thing has been an absolute keeper in my collection. I've had this for over 10 years now, and it's just a stunning guitar. So yeah, if you're looking for something different, and if you're looking for an Australian-made guitar that's nice and light and just is full of really great tone, give these guys a look. This next guitar is from Harley Benton, a very divisive company on the internet. Everyone gets on there and gives them their 2 cents, but basically I love this thing. It's so good for its price. Even though this is more expensive than some of the entry-level guitars they make, I think it's absolutely worth it, and I'll talk about why. Not only does this Fire Mist finish look great, but this whole Fusion T series just makes a lot of sense if you're a gigging musician. You get stainless steel frets here as well, and arguably one of the nicest necks I've ever seen on any guitar. I mean, take a look at the flaming on this. Now, this is roasted maple as well, and it just looks stunning. It has this sort of almost 3D quality to it. I really dig it. The finish on the body looks great as well. We get nice contours here for extra playability, locking tuners, which is always a welcomed addition, and 2 really great sounding humbuckers. Now, these aren't the typical Roswell pickups that Harley Benton used for a long time. These are the Tesla ones, which, you know what? I don't actually know the difference, but they sound fine, and that's all that matters. We get 1 volume control, 1 tone control, a 3-way toggle switch, and we get a tremolo system that actually works. Now, this is a Wilkinson tremolo, and overall I've had no problems with tuning stability. And while I don't use the tremolo arm a lot, when I have used it, it's been fine. Playability on this has been exceptional. The frets feel great. I think these are stainless steel frets, and they're quite large, so you'll never have to worry about maintenance when it comes to the frets, which is fantastic. Now, I've seen in some comments that people say sometimes the stainless steel starts to tarnish. I haven't experienced that whatsoever, and my old house was notoriously damp, and if it was going to happen, it would have happened, because it happened to my Gibson and it didn't happen to this. And this has been such a great guitar. over the last couple of years, and it also was the star of our October Halloween special short film. And if you missed that, I'll link that down in the description. You can watch it after this. But it's such a great looking guitar, and it also sounds great. I can highly recommend this particular model. Up next is my Kiesel S5. This is loaded with the Johnny Highland pickups, and it's a beautiful custom guitar. Now you can essentially buy the Johnny Highland signature guitar, or you can customize anything you like, and that's sort of where this guitar came in. Kiesel reached out to me and they said, do you want to build a guitar using our website thing? And I said, oh man, absolutely. I was honored. So I thought, oh, let's do it. So this particular guitar has all the stuff that I like, and it's also more playable than any of my Fender guitars. It's not even close. This thing plays better than even my PRS SE Custom 24, which I've raved about for years. So I recently played a festival as of shooting this video, about a week or so ago, and I just used this the entire gig. It played so well. Anyway, this has got stainless steel frets, so we get 24 stainless steel frets here. We get the Telecaster body, it's nice and light. We get a roasted maple neck as well, which is fantastic. These frets are also quite tall, so I'm never going to have to replace them or do anything like that, which I love. So big thumbs up there. The star of the show on this guitar, other than the playability, of course, is the tone. Now, while it's got 3 pickups, this bridge pickup is actually a Tele bridge pickup. It's kind of disguised kind of as a Strat, but the great thing about the way the switching works here, with the bridge pickup selected, we're on bridge pickup. In this position 2, we now have these two together, which is how a Strat works, but you get more attitude thanks to this bridge pickup. Middle position is middle pickup on its own. This position here, which is usually these two, is actually the Tele position of neck and bridge, which I'm a huge fan of. And we get our neck pickup on its own. Now this is loaded with 1 volume control and 1 tone control. We also get a tremolo that works beautifully. Again, these are so much more reliable than other options. I really dig it. As you can see, looking at the body here, you can just see the grain through the wood. I love this. The neck feels amazing. This is the fattest neck that Kiesel make. It's not quite as fat as some of the 50s Telecasters or Les Pauls that you'll find, but it still feels amazing in the hand. And I love it. It's, again, one of the most playable guitars I've got. We get a nice cutaway here for easy high fret access and locking tuners. Overall, this is an absolute dream to gig with, because not only is the tuning stability great, it's light, you get plenty of great tones, and these pickups really have a lot of presence in the room, not just high end, but they sort of cut in a 3-dimensional kind of way. I love these pickups. They're some of the most usable. Coming from someone who's owned every set of Johnny Highland pickups over the years that I paid for, I love these. I think these are by far in another league compared to all the old ones that I've owned. So yeah, great sounding pickups, great sounding guitar, comes in a killer gig bag. I can't recommend this thing enough. Up next is a guitar that anytime I handle, I get fingerprints all over it, but it's a really cool guitar from the folks over at Vola. Now this stands for the Voice of Life and Arts. This is made in Japan, much like my Tokai Love Rock electric guitar, and we get all the bells and whistles at a far more affordable price than if this was built, say, in the US or Canada or wherever, right? So you're getting a pretty premium guitar. Now this is best suited for folks who want to play fusion or sort of rock stuff, but you can basically do anything thanks to the pickup configuration. Now the shape of this won't be for everybody. I know not everyone's a huge fan of the sort of modern aesthetics of this, but I've actually come to really appreciate it. We also get the reverse headstock as well. So if you're wondering why this looks a little bit different, it's got a reverse headstock. Now when it comes to the pickup configuration over here, we get a P90 single coil neck pickup and a humbucker. Now the humbucker can be split, so you can get those single coil tones across the 3 different positions of the switch here, which is great. If you take a look on the guitar here, we have a button that will allow you to go from any configuration to wide open, which is really cool. So you can turn down, hit the button, and everything will be maxed out. It will also bypass the tone pots. Now, this guitar also gives you 2 different tone circuits, thanks to, I think, the tone control on this one. I think the neck pickup from memory is the one that splits the bridge pickup, but one or the other anyway. So you can get 2 different sort of slight variations of the tone. It's very subtle, but you can leave that up or down. It doesn't really matter. But overall, this is a very playable guitar. Not only do we get stainless steel frets here, so they're never going to wear out. If we take a look at the back here, you can see that we get a pretty great contour. So if you want to play further up the neck, you can quite easily. Maybe not as easy as some of my other guitars, but yeah, we get this nice, beautiful roasted maple neck. And there's also Goto locking tuners. Now you can see the signature on the back here. This is from Maykown Reichenbach. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I probably got that wrong. He pronounces it differently. He looks like an Italian guy who's got a German accent, so I'm a little confused by the whole way to pronounce his name. I could be completely off there. But basically, I've tried my best to pronounce it, and there's a little QR code here, and it says made in Japan on the back. But yeah, beautiful guitar, something very different. These come in a really cool gig bag. You know, my only small nitpick about this is, of course, that the fact that it's a fingerprinting machine, but there's also some air bubbles behind the clear scratch plate that I'm unable to sort of remove. I can kind of adjust the screws slightly, which gets rid of them, but they kind of come back. So yeah, if you can live with a clear pick guard, this is still a really cool guitar, just something very different in the collection. You know, I had a Shure for a while and I liked this a lot more, so I moved the Shure on, and I'm keeping this for any time that I need to use some sort of higher gain tone samples. This isn't something for me that I'll take out and play live. It's definitely not the aesthetic that I'm going for when I'm doing my shows, but basically anytime I need that high gain tone in a demo or whatever the case may be, this guitar pops up. So very usable, very flexible, lots of different options. We get a tremolo arm that's also very reliable, so if you like to use the whammy bar, you'll be good to go. Over to a guitar I've been playing plenty since it arrived here at the house, all the way from Surrey, England. This is the Maybury Guitars Fishhook S. Now the fishhook means that we've got these little hooks here and here, but it's still very playable, very reminiscent of a Strat. Now the body of this is made from reclaimed timber. This was actually made from early 19th century floor joists, which is pretty cool. So reclaimed timber is always a good thing. We get a reclaimed squire neck, and it's also been heavily modified with the inlays and the frets and so forth. So there's been a lot of work that went into this guitar to get it to where it is, and I love this finish. It's kind of reminiscent of the Kiesel I showed you earlier, but we get this really cool aqua or sort of, you know, turquoise kind of color here. It's very cool. Whatever you're seeing on screen is accurate, so whatever the actual color is called, that's what you're looking at. But the plastics are made from reclaimed materials, as well as these dials being off a record player. Now we get a 3-way toggle switch here for the Sun Bear humbucker pickups. Now, I didn't know anything about Sun Bear pickups, but after doing some research, there's a lot of people raving about these. I actually prefer the sound of these humbuckers even over my Gibson Flying V, which is crazy, but they're just so clear on the top end, and if you like your note clarity coming through, no matter how much gain you're using, these pickups are fantastic. They really are that good. While this is a reclaimed squire neck, you can see the headstock shape has also been heavily modified, and they've burnt in their logo on the headstock. I think it looks quite cool. Maybe the only weakness to this guitar are the tuners. I might actually replace this with some locking tuners or some vintage ones at some point. They're just not quite as good as the other guitars in the collection when it comes to tuning reliability, but they're fine. They do an okay job. I would just like to replace them in my own time. So the neck on this feels amazing as well. It feels so much more premium than your standard Squire neck. It has this beautiful sort of satin finish to it. They've obviously sanded it back and done something to it to make it feel this good. You can see the logo on the back, and then we get a string through body. The body material, man, I love the look of this. I mean, look at it up close. You can see it on the overhead camera here, just how great this thing looks. And yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to play. It's nice and light as well. So some Strats can weigh a ton. This doesn't. It's lighter than my Stratocaster, which we'll get to in just a moment. But it's a great guitar, and if you're looking for something different that's made in the UK from reclaimed materials, these guys do a really great job. They also have a Telecaster, or one of many, which I've got in there, so that'll be up next. And this was the first guitar that Maybury Guitars sent out. This is their Fishhook T electric guitar. So tally style, and we get the fishhook design here. Shout out to Anjay, who helped sort of organize this, and a shout out to Jason from Maybury Guitars as well for putting this together for me. So this has a lot of familiar things about it, and also some, you know, big differences as well. I think the biggest difference would be the finish on the body. I'll show you this up close. You can see just how sort of textured the top is, but it also looks really beautiful. Now, I know already this won't be for everybody. These guitars are aimed at a very different market to someone who just wants your bog standard Sunburst Strat, for example, or Sunburst Tally. So there is a different appeal here for the right type of player. Now, interestingly enough, this guitar is loaded with 2 Fender single coil pickups. These are 1980s made in Japan single coils. These pickups very heavily remind me of the tones I was getting out of my 52 reissue Telecaster back in the day. So while these sound great clean, they don't handle gain anywhere near as well as other modern alternatives. So I think if I had to guess, these would be a 50s style pickup made in the 80s. So yeah, made in Japan, cool pickup system. We get a 3-saddle bridge down here. These are brass as well, which is fantastic. We get a volume control, tone control, and a 3-way toggle switch. This particular instrument has more bling on it when it comes to the neck detail. You can see the inlays here. They look really stunning. I can't remember exactly what the inlays are, but I reviewed it, and if you want to check that out, I'll link to the playlist down below. It's around the same weight as a regular Telecaster, whereas the Fishhook S is very light, and this also has a much more premium neck. This neck feels way better in the hand. It's a little bit thicker as well, and we get locking tuners. So yeah, I really wish they had to put locking tuners on the other one, but definitely not a big deal. I can do that in my own time. But I love the look of this guitar visually. It's definitely one of my favorites. From the back here, as you can see from just the finish, it's sort of semi-translucent, but the top here is really what makes this guitar. And again, if you're looking for a guitar made out of reclaimed timber that's very different visually, but sort of very familiar to play, give Maybury Guitars a look. This is my Fender American Original 50 Stratocaster. This is the only Stratocaster I own. As a blues player, most blues players have a whole bunch of Strats laying around. This is the only one that I've got, and this is the best Strat I've ever owned, hands down. It's not even close. So there's a whole lot of things I love about this, but the first immediate thing you'll notice is that the pickups aren't stock. I installed a set of lace sensor gold pickups. These are low output single coils that help reduce the amount of sort of buzz you'll get in a room when you're recording or playing out live. So for me, doing what I do here in the studio, it was a no-brainer. And I love the look of this. It's very reminiscent of my favorite white Eric Clapton Strat that he played on stage for many years. It's such a great sounding Strat. While Clapton has that TBX boost circuit, I didn't do any of that to this guitar. I've just kept everything else the same except for the pickups. While it's nice to have a visually impressive guitar, one of the things that sold me on this, other than the tone, is the fact that we get a nice soft V-neck. If you haven't played one of these, they're not too fat and they're not too thin like the modern necks. So they're right in the middle, and I think these necks will appeal to just about everybody. As you can see, we get a nice, beautiful piece of wood here. The finish is quite nice. Some people find these a little bit too sticky to the hand, but I use finger ease all the time anyway, whether I'm playing this guitar or another one, and I haven't really had too much of an issue with it whatsoever. Maybe my only complaint with this guitar is the fact that it's just a little bit on the heavy side, and while we get the beautiful tweed case and all the bells and whistles that come along with a Fender Stratocaster at this particular price, it is quite heavy, and I still prefer playing the Kiesel just in terms of playability. But when I want that Strat feel and that Strat vibe, I'm a huge fan of this, and I'm so glad I've ended up going over to these lace sensor pickups. I've been so happy with them since installing them. It's just been a guitar I've been using a whole lot more. And this is my Fender American Original 50s Telecaster, part of the same series as the Strat that you just saw. Now, if you're wondering why you haven't seen this much over the last few months, maybe 6 months or more, it was the fact that the old house I was living in with that damp issue also ruined this guitar internally. So I had to go back and rewire a few things, reflow some solder, and actually change the volume and tone pot. So I've done that recently. I also replaced the end cap for the switch, which was falling off left, right, and center. I would super glue it on, it would come off. The way that I use these controls, I tend to knock them around a lot, and it'll mean that they just fall off a whole lot easier than other alternatives. I hate the original top hat switches. They just fall off if you're kind of rough with the guitars. But anyway, so I put a Strat tip on here now, and it's been fine, which is awesome. So I only did this a few days ago, and I'm glad it's sort of all sorted out. Now, there's a few things that I love about this guitar, even more so than my Fender 52 reissue Telecaster, which I showed you at the start. This is a better guitar overall, straight out of the box. We get a much fatter and more beautiful neck with a nicer finish. As you can see, this looks absolutely stunning. This is the best neck out of any Fender guitar I've played, or I should say that I've owned, because I have played some relic necks I actually prefer over this. But in terms of these high gloss necks, this is by far the best one that I've played, and it's definitely not as sticky as the Stratocaster, if that's a concern. It just feels really great. This has two of the best single coils you're going to find on a Tele, straight out of the shop. There's no need to replace the pickups. They sound great clean. They got all the snap on the neck pickup that you could need, and lots of the attitude on the bridge pickup. If you throw on an overdrive or distortion pedal, they don't squeal like the original 52 reissue Telecaster I had, which makes this a more playable guitar straight off the shelf. You still get the same great tweed hard case and all of that kind of stuff. So essentially, this is all stock, minus the fact I've had to change the pots just out of necessity. I haven't done anything else to this guitar, and it's by far one of my favorites. I could play this as my one and done Tele. And lastly, in August of 2023, I helped design this with the folks over at Kiesel. This is my most played and most playable guitar since getting it. This is the Kiesel SH6. Now, this has a semi-hollow body design. We get an F-hole on the top here, and it's nice and light. I think this is the lightest guitar in my collection, which means it's the most favored anytime I'm going out and jamming or whatever the case may be. It's super light. It's actually about the same weight or lighter than the Kiesel Tele that I showcased earlier. So it's very light. It's very ergonomic, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So I was looking to build a guitar that was kind of reminiscent of my PRS SE Custom 24, but better, and this absolutely ticked the box. So I'm going to talk about what went into the thought process of this, and we're also going to show you maybe the most impressive neck out of all of the guitars in just a moment. But much like the Sun Bear pickups, these pickups have so much cut and note clarity. Every time I've taken this out and played it live, people go, man, what's that guitar? It sounds fantastic. It's always so clear. And I tell them what it is. It's the Kiesel with these really great sounding pickups. Now I'll put the pickup name on screen because they've slipped my mind. But the cool thing about this guitar, it's not just a straight up 3-way toggle switch. We get a 5-position toggle. So neck position here is neck pickup in humbucker mode. Then we get neck position in split coil or single coil mode. Both pickups in single coil mode, which is also hum cancelling, which is great. And then as we go down to bridge pickup, it's bridge pickup in split or single coil mode, and then bridge pickup in humbucker mode. So the way I like to use this guitar is either on neck pickup or bridge pickup. There's so much clarity there. But if I'm playing rhythm guitar behind someone else, I'll actually opt for that middle position. It's got such great voicing and clarity. It's very kind of reminiscent of a Telecaster on both pickups. How cool does this body look up close? As you can see, we get some flaming there, but the flaming doesn't end with the top of the body. It ends with this beautiful neck. Have a look at this 3D maple neck here. It is unbelievable. I've only ever seen 2 other guitars that come close to this particular neck. While the Harley Benton I showed you earlier is beautiful, this is on a whole other level. It's right up there with the Monteleone I reviewed at Jerry's Lefty Guitars a couple of years ago. We get the locking tuners. This is a 24 fret guitar with easy fret access all the way up. And being that it's as light as it is and it sounds as good as it does, this could be my one and done humbucker guitar for doing live shows. It is so good. And again, I've been using this out more than any of my other guitars when it comes to playing live because it's light, it sounds great, and it just ticks all the boxes when it comes to tone. While the aesthetics of this neck are right up there with some of the best, it also is one of the nicest in the hand. It has a nice chunk to it, very reminiscent of like a Gibson 50s neck. Not the baseball bat fat ones, but just some of their more modest ones. So it's very comfortable to play, especially if you've got larger hands. But again, you can customize this however you like. At the end of the day, this guitar is everything I love about my PRS SE Custom 24 and more. It's got better tone than that. It's lighter. It's also more playable. The tuning stability is better. The locking tuners are fantastic. And I wanted a guitar that didn't have a whammy bar because I don't use them that often. So it's a good point of difference from the PRS, as great value as that guitar is. But this thing is something else. And if you haven't heard or bought a Kiesel guitar before, they're definitely worth checking out, as you can pretty much spec them out however you like.